Because he wasn't old enough, but we hold up with the hands.
It is 6:30. Everyone stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Driver, if you would take the roll for us, please. Here.
Here.
Ms. Ferguson? Here. Mr. Harriman?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Here.
Mr. Terry?
Here.
If there are no additions or amendments to this evening's council meeting agenda, the agenda will stand as presented. Can I obtain a motion to approve the council work session meeting minutes from January 8th?
Motion to approve council work session minutes.
Second.
Ms. Daly?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Mr. Harriman?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Minutes are approved. We do not have a proclamation this evening. I'll cover something in my mayor's report, so we will move into the visitor section. And this evening, we have one visitor, Mr. John Mayer, if you'd like to come to the podium. And then every visitor has 3 minutes to present.
Tell me when the clock starts.
It'll be right there, yes. But yes,
Thank you.
I'll
No, you get a mile.
I live in Plain City. I live at 602 Florence Drive on the corner of Florence and Caroline, close to Lafayette, Plain City, and the Madison Meadow Park that just opened this summer. It's also right next to the pile of dirt that they're putting there to raise the grade level for the scheduled townhomes that will be built sometime in another phase of Madison Meadows. My complaint is the amount of dirt and mud that is in our neighborhood due to the trucks digging out basements for new homes. They transport it from the site through our streets, mainly Leslie, Valerie, Florence, and Caroline Drives. They drive it up the dirt mound, dump it, and drive onto the streets. It's been going on for over a year, and I would be aggravated, but it really struck a chord with me when they did the new water main on Lafayette Plain City Road, and Miller Pipe came in. Miller Pipe came in, and they put their equipment on the same site. They dumped gravel. They had their equipment. I'm thinking, geez, oh man, there's more work, more noise. But they were fantastic because every day they had a street sweeper, and they swept the street. Anywhere there was gravel, whether it was minute or not, the last thing they did every day was clean the street. And I couldn't believe it. It made me realize how bad of a job D.R. Horton's been doing. They've been doing such a subpar. They're lucky to go out once a week and clean the streets in the neighborhood. And when they do, the piece of equipment is subpar or mediocre compared to what they did. I came down the Friday before Christmas and complained because it was so compressed and packed that when they came out on Monday, the subpar equipment that they contract out to somebody with couldn't even get it all off. And then we had a lot of rain, so you had a lot of mud in your driveway in the streets for Christmas and holiday and people coming over. It just made me think that is there anything in the contracts with these developers to maintain the streets? Because although it's a construction site for new development, it's also an occupied development. There are people living there. And it just seems to me it's reasonable a company like D.R. Horton could afford to clean the streets better for the amount of millions that they're making off the development. So it would be my question if something could be done about it or looked into. That being said, we've been here for 18 months, my wife and I, and we really enjoy it. But D.R. Horton and the way they're making a mess over there can be really aggravating. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and appreciate you coming to council. Not all the time will we say something back, but we definitely hear your concern, and we'll get with staff and see what we can do and to continue that effort.
That'd be,
Yes.
We actually have an ordinance about mud on the roadway, and they're supposed to clean it up. I just gotta remember, some of those streets haven't been turned over to us yet, so we can't really enforce it until the streets are turned over to the village. We can definitely keep an eye on it, maybe talk to them and stuff. And then when you do have that issue, feel free to just call us and we'll go take care of it. Because once we get a complaint, then we definitely gotta do something.
It is a hazard. I mean, you could call it a hazard under what conditions and so forth.
It doesn't even have to be a hazard, it's just muddy. I mean, they gotta clean the roads, they keep them on. I mean, all the other developments, we've been keeping an eye on since the streets are turned over to us and we make them clean it off with a bobcat or something.
It's just compounded because they're not dumping off-site, they're actually dumping on-site. So they're making a quarter-mile loop, driving through mud, taking it to the streets, driving, so, thank you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Chief, for weighing in on this matter as well. Okay, moving into our report section. I said I'd skip over the proclamation, and I gave a proclamation yesterday. Staff and I talked about possibly doing it here this evening, but once presenting it in person during Pastor Alice Phillips' last preaching service yesterday seemed a little bit more special. I told her sometimes we don't always get very many people attending our council meetings, so to present it in front of her congregation for all the different things she has done for the community. She has been a member of the Plain City Lions Club, led National Day of Prayer for the last 9 years. She's been here 9 years in the community, helped to get LifeWise Academy in our with John Alder, so providing us a place for it, and she's just is always giving back to the community. So instead of having her come in here this evening, I presented that yesterday to her. And then Ms. Lupton and I met with Congressman Kerry's office today to meet the new contact for Madison County and have a conversation about ways that we can work together more, and if there's any issues that our residents have that's on the federal level. They even said, you know, if it's a issue with the post office or postal service and everything, which not for our Plain City, but just in general, to give them a call, and if there was immigration questions or anything of the sort, Congressman Kerry is there to help. So with that, I will pass it over. Oh, and then before end of December, so it was after our last meeting, I want to thank staff for helping me with a tour of Canaan with the Canaan Middle School students. And Mr. Terry was in, he happened to be in the office at that day, so got to impart some words of wisdom to the 5th and 6th graders that were coming through for the tour. They enjoyed their time and learned a little bit more about local government and how they can take a part in it. So I want to thank staff members for giving of their time the day before their break and everything. So with that now, Ms. Lupton.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works crew has been busy. Snow plow, we've had several events over the past week and a half, logged over about approximately 140 hours already, and just want to shout out to the crew on their hard work. It's not easy working all night shifts. The bid opening for the dog park went well. That's the dog park that will be built on Jackson Street. We had several favorable bids, so those are being evaluated by the engineering firm now, and they should be on council's agenda to award at the next meeting. Our comprehensive plan update, RFP is out to bid now. It just started last Friday, so it'll be out to bid for 4 weeks. And I just want to remind everybody about the business roundtable at Dare Dutchman on February 20th. Registration is now open, and there's a limited number of seats, so you can register on our website if you'd like, or it's open to the public and all businesses as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lupton. Ms. Sonnet, our finance director.
Thank you. I have the opportunity to report.
Thank you. Chief McKee, our police chief.
Yeah, I want to also say thanks to the Public Works guys for doing a great job with the streets. I say it every year, police departments, even police officers have heroes, and those guys are our heroes, because without them, we couldn't get our cruisers down the streets and respond to emergencies. So I want to give a shout out to Ryan and his crew. And then also the PD received a body armor grant for approximately $1,600 to help purchase body armor, bulletproof vests for the officers. Officer Fritz has completed his first phase of the field training and is now completing the second phase. And this week he is attending the crisis intervention team training and is expected to graduate this Friday on the 17th. The CIT training is basically training that we make mandatory for all the officers. officers. The training provides them techniques on how to handle situations when encountering people experiencing mental health crisis. So it's a very valuable training. And then lastly, we have panel interview scheduled for this Thursday for the 2 police officers position that we're trying to hire. We're still having difficulty attracting qualified applicants, as with most agencies they are. So I'm being positive that we're going to find some people this Thursday. Hopefully 2, but definitely want 1 at least. So that's all I have at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Moving into our discussion items, our first topic is adult use cannabis moratorium.
I'll take this one, Mayor. Around this time last year, council passed a moratorium allowing recreational dispensaries within village limits, with the promise that we would revisit early this year to see what next steps we wanted to take. Unfortunately, since we passed the moratorium, there's still not a lot of guidance on where the revenue for dispensaries go. We know that the revenue received by communities is based on how many dispensaries you have. We know dispensaries can't be within, I think, 500 feet of schools, churches, which would limit dispensaries to around the 42 corridor, which is appropriate. But really what we were looking for was how much revenue could we expect per dispensary and what could we use it for before we say absolutely not or yes, we want to move forward. There's still not any guidance from the state on that other than the the revenue that has to be used in the education and the revenue that goes to the state. That's all figured out, but not really to the local community. So we hesitate to make any sort of recommendations. We have a couple options. We could either adopt it and move forward with recreational, and then we would look at medical as well and figure it out kind of later. We could prevent it entirely, like medical dispensaries are, or we could choose to extend the moratorium to allow for additional rules, hopefully received later this year, so we can make an educated decision, which is what staff would recommend. There's no legislation on tonight, but we just wanted some guidance because that moratorium is coming up. We do get some questions from potential business owners looking for council's direction.
If we do nothing and we let the moratorium expire, does that mean de facto that it's legal? Like what happens?
Our code only says medical dispensaries. It does not clarify recreational dispensaries. So from that, technically, it would be allowed use.
It would be allowed. So if we do nothing, it turns into a pumpkin and becomes allowed, and medical isn't allowed, which is kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
We're going to do recreational. And when's the moratorium over?
25th
25th.
February.
February.
Yeah, February. So you have a month.
I have no problem with extending moratorium. Also, I have no problem if other members of council want to go a direction. I don't really have I don't have a really strong feeling. You can't just continually kick the can.
What has been the business interest? I mean, how many?
I wouldn't say it's a lot. Just like I said, it's pretty limited where they could go anyway. It'd be on the 42 corridor. But I think people just send out general inquiries. There's no one beating down the door or anything.
I've not been having these conversations about anybody that I talk to in the community, and nobody has approached me about it. I don't know if any.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Right
say there's.
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we, any of the other, like, I don't say surrounding communities, but even through central Ohio, do we know, because I know last year, I think a lot of them did have the moratorium just because nobody really knew. Like, the law was passed, but there was no direction on the law, so I think everybody was kind of like, did the moratorium kind of as a wait and see. Has anybody, communities, have they acted on anything that we know of?
Justin, Mr. Girardi, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so like Columbus has adopted legislation, but as far as like immediate, I believe Marysville did adopt some, but they're also actually in the process of changing what was previously adopted.
What did Columbus adopt to allow?
To allow, yes.
And what did Marysville do?
Allow, and now they are changing, I believe. So the multiple steps you can allow, but then you also can adopt zoning code to regulate and all that good stuff. Marysville, if I remember correctly, is changing some of those zoning regulations for the regular location and all that.
Yeah, they've had a turnover in their council council, and they've had some different views. I've gotten that from my CIC that I sit on, but for me, there's no direction on how this money is being spent. I would say, I would like to extend it until we know exactly what this is gonna be and how it can benefit us. Justin gave a great thing with our economic development group about a month ago with a lot of information. There's a lot of money out there, but we don't know what it can be used for. And to be honest, we would only have 1 or 2 dispensaries here. And looking at the percentages that, if you read through the documents that we have attached, you don't get much out of it. Is it really a benefit? And where's all that money going?
I would agree too, and just make sure we have better information.
Yeah. I realize we're kicking it down the can
I'm
again,
okay with
but
kicking the can, yeah.
if we don't have information, we can't make it really good.
No, I mean, and we look at just even issue 2 last year when it passed? I mean, it was 50-50, you know, it's not like there was an overwhelming majority kind of for or against. So I think, you know, like you said, not knowing what the, you know, benefits are of it. And then I'd be curious to know too, kind of what additional we can, you know, there is with it. Because I know you have the 500 feet with churches and schools, but I know probably the sentiment with some of the neighbors, probably my neighborhood would probably not to have it be like right behind our houses. So I don't know with, you know, some of the development, you know, being in people's backyards would be preferred either.
You brought up a good point of like a lot of our, some of our new neighborhoods that have the commercial frontage and neighborhoods in the back. I would be pro extending the moratorium, but me personally, I feel that I would rather not see it here in our town.
What are you thinking from an extension standpoint, like another year?
Probably another 12 months, yeah.
Is it really waiting till that 26, 27? Is that the fiscal year? Is that when they know where the money's going to be distributed? I know that's what it said. Is that when will they have an idea of probably where the allocations would go?
The soonest that correct, it's the next state operating budget, which would be beginning in 26. And that's what all our consultants in the industry is doing. Obviously, there's more rules, if there's changes to the different percentages of where all the revenue goes, that could push that back, but it's way too early to say. That's gonna be after beginning 26 would be the soonest.
I feel like it's fair to not be bleeding edge on this, and
Yeah.
and I feel like extending the moratorium for the
Okay, so Ms. Lupton, you have that? Okay.
Yep, that'll be on the next council agenda.
Okay, and then underspeed vehicles.
This came as a result of some of the updates to the code regarding speed limits. I believe the discussion was that golf carts were still, they're not included in our code. Mr. Dry's done a ton of work on this one. The recommendation is there's some legislation on the council tonight for the first reading. It allows golf carts only on 25 miles per hour and below.
And prohibiting it on multi-use pathways, prohibiting
right.
it on multi-use pathways, and primarily parks. To talk about what Ms. Lupton said, after the recent speed limit changes, there was concern brought up that there was nothing actually prohibiting underspeed vehicles, aka golf carts, from using some of the wider multi-use paths. Obviously, and especially with safety in mind of pedestrians, staff thought it would be prudent to not have the chance for golf carts on the same path as a bike or a pedestrian and all that. So this would prohibit that. It also prohibits it from any park or owned and operated parkland. So especially if a conservation area or on some of the future parklands, this would prohibit golf carts and speed vehicles from actually going through that parkland as well.
But this would not affect the paths like Darby Fields, because those are part of their HOA, but it would affect that.
It would, if it's a public path, a public multi-use path, golf carts cannot be driving.
So they would be on the roadways when it's 25 or less.
Yes.
So this would affect the path behind the school too.
I think it keeps it off the sidewalks also.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have to be on the 25-mile-an-hour road. So in Pastime Park, they would have to stay in the, like, where cars can drive?
Correct, yes. There's,
Except for parking, you can go into a parking area.
yes.
So if they were looking
Yeah.
at a camper, they could park at their camper.
Yeah, basically, they're regulating car.
Yes, which is also in line with what a lot of other communities have already done. And the discussion with Chief, kind of feeling out this potential code. Some other municipalities went, I think in 2016, when the state of Ohio changed their laws, communities did adopt similar language. This is, from my research, fairly standard in a lot of surrounding communities with, again, they have the same provisions.
So how does this affect electric scooters, one-wheels? Like, are those allowed on paths? Okay.
Oh, no, I don't know about those. This is just for the underspeed vehicles.
Not.
Okay, those would not be an underspeed
Yeah,
vehicle.
to my knowledge, I don't think those are classified the same way as underspeed vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to double check. I don't think.
Yeah, there's a definition in the ordinance that covers those.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Dryer and Ms. Upton. And then ODOT updates.
Thank you. A couple of items on the agenda tonight have to do with ODOT. We are participating in a large grant to extend safety improvements to 42 and West Avenue, Perry Pike, installing a crosswalk extension to the sidewalk, as well as pedestrian improvements, striping, curb ramps, signal heads, and all of that. The legislation is just required because there is federal funding. We have to kind of opt back in. We've already budgeted the numbers. We've been working on this project for almost 2 years now with engineering. The construction's about ready to go. We just have to pass this required legislation. Also on tonight's agenda is a consent legislation. ODOT requests every few years. We haven't done it in a while, but they're trying to have all the communities do it again. Since they do have state highways inside of municipal corporations, they like to have legislation saying that they can run snowplows down it for us. They can repair potholes or make other repairs as needed. So this is just standard legislation for that. It's very long, so I want to make sure we're clear on. They're not doing it, it's more preventative. There are no upcoming projects. And that's all that is.
Thank you, Ms. Lupton. And then committee, commission, and board overview.
I'm gonna pass it to Mr. Dryer to talk about this one a little bit.
Absolutely. So, at the direction and inquiry of council, both at the 2024 and at a work session last week, staff put together just this very, very brief one-page overview. I do want to note, this does not include any proposed rules and regulations. I'll get to that in a second. But within this document, it just outlines the existing term limits, the existing membership structure, and which the committees have adopted rules and regulations. I won't go through every single line of it. I did, or staff put together the main 7 that you see within the table, because those are predominantly the ones that are within the oversight of what council. The Housing Council, Tax Incentive Review Council, and the PCADC, a lot of those have ORC stipulations that fall outside of the Plain City Compact ordinances. So there's membership structures and term limits that are regulated by the state of Ohio, so that's why they're kind of separate. Point being, BCA is the only one thus far that's adopted rules and regulations. I will say staff has been working on rules and regulations for the Economic Development Committee and is in the process of working with that. And then from staff's review, I think that will serve as a really good template, especially if the committee adopts that. I think that can serve as a really good template for other committees, commissions, and boards, and so on and so forth. I will say, and there's not strictly noted as much, P&Z is currently 6-year term limit. There has been legislation drafted and will be reviewed by P&Z at their February meeting that would amend that from 6 years to 3-year term limits for all commission members. And since that is within the zoning code, that has to go through the zoning amendment change process. So we'll have to go to the public hearing of P&Z commission. P&Z will make a recommendation to council, and then council has to set the public hearing, hold a public hearing, and then can hold the first reading of the legislation, again, assuming that the recommendations and approvals are going as planned. The other term limits, the other structure, those can be done via resolution, or ordinance if it's in the compact ordinance, is BZA, but many of the other ones are resolution-based committees, so those can be done via resolution. if something's changed. As far as rules and regulations go, the rules of council that have been approved and the codified ordinances, they all say that each committee or commission board should adopt its own rules and regs. That's predominantly left up to each committee. So like I said, the draft that is being proposed by the Bill Committee, I think is a really good setup, and I can serve as a template, but at this time, BZA is the only one that's adopted rules and regs.
Cool. Do you still want me to go to all the committee meetings and talk to everyone? Is that still a thing you guys want me to do?
I'm not sure it's necessary, to be completely honest with you. But again, if
Yeah, I know you're already a member of Parks and Rec. Mr. Lafayette's doing a presentation to P&Z this week.
Everyone can kind of pass along their
Yeah,
own committees.
I think that's
Yeah,
appropriate.
I'll do Parks and Rec tomorrow.
Yeah.
Perfect. I am fine with no term limit on personnel finance CIP specifically because it's an advisory committee. If we want to put some on there, we can, and I think there's a lot of value there to have consistent members, but if we did, we could always keep the same, like, when we say term limit, you think like that they can't be renewed, but really it's just term length, I think is the way I would rename this, because these aren't really limits, right? We're saying people can get reappointed, right? So I would maybe change that to term length, and because there is no real term limit. Now, if we wanted to limit anyone, we could. That would be my only question. Is there any committees that we just think, generically speaking, no one should serve on? P&Z for Parks and Rec for more than 20 years. I don't think anyone's going to, but
I think I'm just gonna pick in general some of the committees, specifically, let's say, BZA,
sure.
like, where you want to, maybe you have somebody who has a particular skill set,
Do you want to
an
keep them?
architect, or engineer, that really fits that one.
Mhm.
That's, to me, somebody who's going to be on those committees, and they have that good skill set that they're donating their time. You don't want to limit and say, hey, you can only be on this committee for 2 terms, and they get, kicked off because of a rule, versus maybe like the, Parks and Rec, well, you have different stuff, especially, growing community, maybe different families or people want to be in different activities to go through, and that one may have more people who want to participate in it. So I don't know how.
What I would love is for that to be a problem. I'd love so many people to want to be on Parks and Rec that we have to expand the size of the committee.
Yeah.
We haven't ran into that problem.
No.
People haven't been volunteering to join committees.
Plus, I think too, alongside with just the experience, is just consistency is as important.
And term length give us the ability to
Refresh.
refresh or, approve someone's new term or say, hey, we need some new blood on this committee, so let's switch that.
Yeah. And for the personnel board appeals, I'm very comfortable keeping it 6 years because those are very, very unique skill sets and very, very rare occurrences that we actually have to call that board. So have we?
I think that's in the charter too.
Yeah, it's in the. I don't know if we have we.
We do one organizational meeting a year.
Okay, so once a year. So hopefully we never have to have anything there. So I'm very supportive of moving planning and zoning down to be in line with the other committees. If we want to throw one on personal finance, it's fine. We can do, just keep it in line with everything else. And I'd just change this from term limit to term length so that we don't impugn anyone thinking that they're booted off after. We'll end up with a lot of vacancies. We have some very senior members. So.
With that, the PCX just listed as 4. Would that be, you want to keep that?
Have we made has anybody stayed on 4 years so far, or besides? I know, Mr.
On personal finance?
No, on BZA.
Oh my gosh.
No, because I know we've had some turnover there.
Yeah. Let's say, I think personal finance, we have like 10 years almost members. It's super beneficial. So when they go through the budgeting process, they understand it and everything.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dryer. smoking in public places. I had Mr. Dryer flip and put that back on because I knew we had talked about it, you know, as a topic, and just going back through items that might have fallen off and wanted to bring it back to discussion.
Yeah, the Ohio Smoke-Free Workplace Law states that there's no smoking, and under the definition of smoking is vaping as well. So when we say smoking, it's tobacco or not. No smoking, obviously, in public places, indoors, anywhere indoors in the village. However, public places is not outside, and so the law does allow municipalities to adopt laws that are more stringent than the Ohio workplace law. We can, I think we're proposing no smoking within signs of, that say no smoking within 25 feet. That's pretty much the standard. So you could do one at each, you know, baseball field, kind of where people congregate. Or Justin, or Mr. Dyer, you can correct me. Can we just say no smoking in all like public-owned land?
That is correct, yes. To your point, it seems like most places have the 25 feet within the sign and then say that those signs need to be posted at XYZ being parks, playgrounds, so that seems to be the more standard. That's the other option.
I would just, so I'm okay with doing it the more standard way, but I'd extend the length and make it like 50 or 100 feet, so we don't have a million signs, you know, everywhere. Because basically, I think when we talked about this before, you started the pool, the ball fields, the playground, you're basically covering most of Pastime Park at this point. We don't really want smoking anywhere in those areas. So at some point, you're basically down to the camping area that people are staying overnight, and I don't know, maybe you could find an area in the parking lot. That's really all. Was that the general thought? Was if we weren't going to, I feel like the group was either cool with totally no smoking anywhere in the public parks, or very pushed into a corner. So I would just.
I think the 25 feet, the having more signs means that someone's going to see it.
Sure.
Because if you're going to have every 100 feet, you might as well just say the park, right? And not have and not even spend money on signs. But so I feel like it's, if we want people to see the signs, there's
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 25, that seems pretty short though, I mean.
Yeah, that's like that side of the room.
Yeah, you
like
got
this
people
side
on
of the room.
first base,
Yeah.
your first base line, third base line, behind the dugout, you know, you don't want anybody kind of where the people are watching the game. I just as a baseball field example, or a football field, you know, if you say, hey, we're gonna do it at the, I guess those are on the school ground, so those might be different, but, you know, think about the baseball field, you're gonna need 6 signs per field or something.
I mean, I would be more apt to say no parking no smoking anywhere except for a designated
That's
area,
fine.
and then you can, to me, that's less signs.
Yeah, sure. That's fine with me too.
I mean, and I was
You
trying
want-
to think, because I thought Mr. Hutchinson, that like Marysville, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we were talking, I thought he said Marysville was completely smoke-free in their public places. I don't know if, I think Dublin, their parks and pools are smoke-free.
I think what you're getting at is exactly what we're saying, is like really we want to designate it to the very specific areas. And we want enough signs where if I'm watching a baseball game, I can like point to a sign, like look at someone and point to the sign and stare at them, like, you know, but, so yeah, I'm fine. However you guys want to execute, it's fine with me.
I go with like, I was like, go like Disney World, like, you know, it's like no smoking anywhere at park except for that spot.
Yeah, you guys can just stand up. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So.
So I guess I have a question with that, with probably for Paul. So how do we enforce it?
Point at the sign.
Because I mean, we don't have a criminal charge if somebody's smoking in a designated area, or not a non-designated area. So like, just like now, if somebody's smoking inside of the building or a bar or something, we can't enforce that with the health department. So, I mean, there's a way to do it. If they're smoking there, we ask them to leave because they're smoking, then it becomes, if they don't leave, then it becomes trespassing.
Sure.
But as far as the smoking itself, do we have to create like a ordinance to charge them so that they're legally charged, or?
Well, I think our ordinance that we already have talks to it. We'd have to amend it to broaden it, because right now we have enclosed areas and everything that are restricted, and it's designated as a minor misdemeanor for violation of it. But we would have to amend the ordinance to expand it to
Public
I'm hoping that you guys don't have to enforce it. I'm hoping we enforce by guilt. I'm like, hopefully guilt enforcement.
It's back like when the mask, when you had to wear the mask and it was mandated, but we still could charge people for not wearing a mask.
Sure.
If they were asked to leave, then it became trespassing. So we had to charge for trespassing.
Yeah, I think our plan
We
was
don't
to
wanna do that
amend the
either.
current ordinance.
Yeah.
And the other communities that, some of the things happen at a very, very similar place within our code of John.
So definitely want to charge them for smoking.
Sure.
Okay, we will write that legislation and have it on the next council agenda for consideration.
Okay. And Aquatic Center rate update.
Ms. Granger is here, Director of Parks, to talk about the hard work that the Parks Committee has put into proposing the Aquatic Center fees and rates for 2025.
Also nice to say that in the minutes, after we have a lot of discussion at Parks and Rec committee meetings, I simply put much discussion ensued. Because there was a lot of discussion of the rates. So basically, just to give a little bit of background, we've always had a difference in membership rates for resident and non-resident. So resident meaning within the confines of the village limits, non-resident anywhere else. So with season memberships, that's what we've always had in place. For daily rates, it's always just been a flat rate. Whether you're resident, non-resident, didn't matter. You just basically pay to get into the pool. So what we started looking at is, number one, we hadn't changed rates since 2020. So with the escalation in the cost of chemicals, certainly in our personnel costs because of minimum wage increases, our labor costs have gone up the pool tremendously and continue to escalate every year. We really wanted to look at doing a rate increase, but with the feasibility study last year, we didn't want to sort of change things up with that going on. So we sort of left everything status quo last year. One thing we did implement at this pool this year to sort of help us do this analysis is we had people sign in for the daily passes. Again, when you go to the pool, typically you're just paying to get in. We don't know who you are, where you come from. We actually have people sign in with their address. So what we found was, as far as people coming into the aquatic center, we have about 20% of the people coming into our front door on a daily pass are residents. About 80% are non-residents. So that could be school district resident, that could be, non-school district resident, could be other communities. So that's kind of what we found out. So, and that's literally exactly how the revenue split is. 20% is village folks coming through the front door, 80% is not. So in knowing that the pool gets fairly crowded on hot days, we really took a look at that, a hard look at that, and a lot of consideration. And certainly, I know council has voiced concern about the crowding we have at the pool sometimes. And we wanted to start to think about the equity for our village residents. In other words, if they are being taxed and they are paying to support the pool, which the pool is lucky enough to cover about 78% of its cost, excluding capital. They're about 78% self-sufficient, but residents are paying taxes to support the aquatic center. We want to make sure that our residents are taken care of, and that non-residents who do not pay any taxes or anything to support the pool, other than their daily or the membership fees, that those folks pay their fair share. And what we've seen over the years is it's starting to become a little bit of a disparity as far as really the folks coming in, particularly with daily pass sales. There wasn't that differentiation between resident and non-resident, so we really want to take a hard look at that. So when we got the data and really looking at that, and I actually pulled a lot of the other municipalities around here and looking what their aquatic center rates were at as far as their season memberships, their daily rates. We definitely were less expensive than many. I looked at London, West Jefferson, Hilliard, Dublin, even looked at Upper Arlington, not really our competition base, but tried to look at every surrounding community, looked at what their pool rates were hitting at, and tried to come up with sort of a fair game plan moving forward. Again, one of the things we have to consider is probably in the next 5 years, according to our planning department, our resident rate is going to double, our amount of residents in the community. So knowing that we're going to have that increased pressure, and knowing what's going on in the surrounding communities, we have a lot of pressure on our aquatic center. So what basically I did is I took the entire base, the database of all the rates, and it's not a scientific process by any stretch of the imagination. It's really challenging. But I tried to come up with an equitable solution, which is to barely raise the season memberships for residents. If you look at that, basically $5, that's all it's gone up. We're trying to keep things fair for our residents since they are being taxed to begin with. And then to increase fairly significantly the non-resident rates for season memberships. Again, it's sort of the same thing you would get if you go to the Columbus Zoo and you're a Franklin County resident, you get that break, and if you're non-resident, you don't. We're doing the same thing here, essentially. Not trying to be punitive, just trying to make people pay their fair share. As far as the daily rates, first time ever, we are going to charge a differential between a resident and a non-resident rate. We're working through the best methodology of that because we do not want it to be a long, cumbersome process to come into the pool, because when it's 90 degrees and you have 3 screaming children, you don't want to spend 15 minutes trying to get in the front door of the pool. So I'm vetting a couple different approaches to that. We're going to be discussing a little bit more tomorrow at the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. So we're going to, sort of vet that through the Parks and Rec Committee and get some feedback from them as well. Haven't got that pinned down yet, but I definitely suggest that we raise the rates for our daily, and we have a differentiated cost between residents and non-residents. And just FYI, I know some folks had said, what about school district residents? Dublin recently discontinued school district residents in their rate package, so they only do residents and non-residents. So, they're feeling the same pressure that we're feeling, and that's what they've gone towards, and I think that's what we need to keep in place. Swim lessons are going up proportionately, not extraordinarily high. Pool parties are also increasing now. Swim lessons and pool parties we do based on a membership and non-membership basis, because along with thinking about residents and non-residents, we want to encourage people to buy memberships, because obviously that gives us the revenue in the front door. If we have a really cold, rainy season and you try to subsist on your daily passes, you're going to take a hard hit in revenue. So we love memberships, so we want to make sure that we give those people who invest in a season membership a somewhat of a break in certain areas. And one of those areas, a couple of those areas, are swim lessons and pool parties. What we have done at the urging of the mayor and council is for swim lessons, for instance, and pool parties, residents get priority registration. So they are able to register first, they get a priority. And for instance, with pool parties, if there's anything left, then non-residents can apply to get a pool party.
So how is that, what is the length of time that priority for swim lessons exists right now?
I think we did 2 weeks, 3 week priority.
How do you do the pool parties, like residents, like you don't open up to non-residents until we're 2 weeks out and there's openings, or how do you do that?
No, we opened it up, I think, May 1st last year, and basically, and we're going to change that up, because we just basically did a sign-up genius where they could just register for a pool party, but then I spent the next three and a half weeks tracking people down because we didn't make them pay. So then I was tracking people down, and there was a waiting list. It became nightmarish, so I'm going to change that up this year. So if you're registering for a pool party as a village resident, you're paying for a pool party up front, so we don't have that going on. So but again, they get a priority registration period. So we think that that's equitable. So there's a lot of information, a lot of data behind it. I can certainly share in more depth, but again, I'm trying to get us a little bit higher in the game for non-residents, not making it punitive, but definitely making folks basically pay.
Have we thought about limiting the number of daily passes so that on a hot day, all the season memberships can get in? Like, is there an upper limit on daily passes that we should be instituting?
Or even non-resident daily passes?
That gets really, really sticky. Then we can approach anything, but I want to keep in mind that we want to be cognizant of also what our staff is put through when you have people coming in and screaming at our front desk staff, because how do you communicate to non-residents that we are now closed or we were shutting down, the ability to get into the pool? We can take a look at that and try and delve into a little bit more.
Just blame the fire department for capacity. They won't allow us to have it.
Yeah, we figured out capacity, and other than swim meets and having the bodies on the grounds, I'm not sure that we've ever really hit capacity, but the reality is this. I say that, I don't want to get too technical, but there's water surface area that you can base capacity on, but then our swim area is actually very small. So water capacity area, we have quite a bit of capacity, but when you really look at the water swim area that we have, it's very small because of the configuration. So that's something we can look at this year, but I think we're only hitting a few times a year where that's, a few times a season where that's an issue.
Yeah, but it's gonna become an issue as we grow.
Yep.
And if we're gonna rip the Band-Aid off, let's rip the Band-Aid off. So for me, I would be open to, there are no daily passes for non-residents. And if you want to, you can be a season member and that's it. I'm definitely pro doubling these non-resident rates, daily rates. Because right now they'd have to come 20 times to buy a season membership. Seems like no one will do that. If we're really talking about having to expand our facility and asking the taxpayers to fund an expansion of the facility, we cannot do that until we have at least started to cater to the residents only, because I am not convinced that we are at capacity, and I think we will be when we get the houses that we're adding, but we need to start limiting this and making it advantageous to live in the village, annex into the village, to be in the village. So I am okay with, I could get behind this, but I'm also okay with doubling those non-resident daily rates or eliminating daily rates for non-residents, and they can buy a season pass and support the village. Or I'm not. It's already being funded by the taxpayers at 78%, and we say without capital. Capital's the biggest number. So I know we don't want to be punitive. I also could say leave the resident rate the exact same, keep that $5 we added and throw it over to non-resident. I think this is one area where we can really prioritize our residents, and they're the ones paying for it. So
I'm
I think I would make it more punitive.
I would warn against the limitation of, you're saying shut it down. If you're a non-resident, you can't come in. Having my kids who work that front desk, have your kid work the front desk just one time and have someone yell at them. It's not fun. And so the idea of limiting coming in, just saying flat out, but not saying we're not going to have non-resident daily rates, whatever, that'd be better for those front desk people than saying, oh, well, we have too many non-residents and you're too busy, but yet, oh, you're resident, we'll let you in. That's going to cause problems.
Sure. So make it.
You got to remember, these are high school kids that are at the front desk.
I mean, obviously, the potential fallout of this is, I mean, if we have 20% of our residents are using pool and 8% are non-residents.
Daily passes.
Daily passes. What is the membership?
Well, so I'll toss out a couple numbers if you want to jot them down even, but, so if we look at revenue for, daily passes, revenue for residents comes in at $13,500. The revenue from non-residents is $54,000. So that's daily pass revenue. So that gives you revenue differential. So what that basically means, I guess the question is, and that's why it's not a science, we don't know how many people coming in within traded memberships. There's really absolutely no way of knowing that.
So we have a lot of revenue coming from non-resident daily passes. And so I would agree that price differential, I would support seeing higher rate for non-resident daily passes. I understand the risk of saying, hey, it's really hot Saturday, and you don't want the high school kids to say, no, we're closed. You know, and I like the idea of it, but implementing that is.
Well, you got to remember too, we've never had a non-resident daily pass.
Never.
And you're saying this is 54 and 13, which is the same rate. You're increasing it to $10 and the other one's $6. You're going to increase that already.
We're staying flat for the resident. We are not increasing the resident daily pass
Right,
cost.
but the non-resident, we're going to increase that, so that revenue's even going to go up if they want to pay that $10.
Ms. Granger.
And I assume a good portion would, because I looked at daily pass costs when you look at London or West Jeff, and we have a problem of success, and we have a nice pool, and it's well run. So that's why people come from other communities come here, and just Jerome Township, honestly, is where a lot of that pressure is coming from.
And Dublin, does Dublin have a daily non-resident?
Well, Dublin has definitely gone to an exclusionary model where, and quite frankly, they can, where the residents, to go to their pools, you have to be a resident.
Yeah.
And then you can bring a guest that's a non-resident. They
Yeah,
have to
people
be
have-
with a Dublin
yeah.
resident.
Yeah, I mean, I would at least, I think the non-resident rates could be even higher than what we see here. I think people would still come, and I agree with the prioritization piece of it. Or if it maybe just on a weekend, maybe you have a, I don't know, is it busier on the, or does it depend on the weather, or does it depend on the, is it
Oh,
more
it's
weekend?
weather.
Just straight weather?
It's certainly more busy on weekends, sure. On a Saturday, you're gonna have much
Yeah.
more business you would on a Wednesday, just because of people working. But without a doubt, it's weather related.
Yeah.
Mr. Cherry, one of the options you said was just eliminate daily pass for non-residents and require memberships. That was one. Obviously, the potential fallout for any of these things is that we could have a year where our revenue is, just.
I don't actually want to look just because there's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
grandparents. Like if your grandparents come, like
Yeah,
and
yeah,
visit,
yeah,
like
yeah.
you can't have no way for them to get in. So
Yeah.
I'm not really. I think you should eliminate non-residents, but
Yeah.
you got to figure out.
What is our split on the between resident and non-resident? So you gave us the daily,
Yep.
the 2080. What's our?
Yep. Memberships, residents comprise, residents comprise about 58%, and non-residents are 42%. So not quite as dramatic. So the revenue is about 44,000, 45,000 on residents, and about 32,000 on non-residents.
Because I'm thinking, I'm looking at the math here. It was not resident, and it jumps up. You're going to start running the number of okay, is it better to go? How many times do you actually go to the pool, or how many people went to the pool? I think that's kind of our breakdown that you got to find out. How that would change too.
I mean, if you look at it in totality, then 60% of our revenue comes from non-residents. When you look at it, I'm excluding pool parties and swim lessons here. I'm just looking at coming in the front door to swim. 60% of our revenue is non-residents, so 40% are residents. So then that's where you could potentially, see a drop.
I think we just have to be prepared. I'm not warning us. We have to be prepared for the fact that we might see our revenue tank the first year we implement this. We just have to be okay with it.
Yeah. I think you could position this, and you phrase it differently, right? So we phrase it 60% of our revenue comes from non-residents, right? That's how our taxpayers are supporting 60% of their value, and their tax money is going to non-residents. Is another way to put that. So like there is, and the capital, remember, is the much larger expense, and so our taxpayers are paying for 60% of non-residents. Like, again, I'm okay with it dropping in the short term because with all the new housing, it's gonna come back. And this brings out to me very early in my council time. Pools are lost losers everywhere. Like, they always lose money. They are a service, right? That it should be going to people that are paying to support that service, is my stance. If it loses revenue or loses a little bit more money, so be it. It's still, when a resident wants to go to the pool, I would hate that they can't go because it's still with non-residents, or non-residents are paying their fair share. When you see a $6 and $10 difference, $4,
Yeah.
it's not punitive enough to me. I think, and we can argue about it. I will ask you this question. You were on the Parks Committee when this got discussed. What was the general feeling of the Parks Committee? Was it because I wouldn't want to go against what they're the residents. I wouldn't want to go against what they want.
We were all over the place, honestly. We had some of these same discussions, so I don't think, what we sort of settled with, let's start with something and progress from there. But we didn't quite go punitive. We didn't go down that road because we were looking at, I didn't actually have that conversation with myself as, hey, we may tank the revenue and it's not a big deal. I was worried about that. But now that I've continued, and we've talked about it out loud, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not worried about that. So
I think, what Mr. Stint said is absolutely correct. I think that, the committee wanted to prioritize residents for sure, but I think they wanted to take, I guess, a slightly more moderate approach, because I think we know with the growth coming, the pool, if we basically say no non-residents, within a few years, we're still busting out of that pool.
Sure.
And a lot of it has to do with the way it's configured, and that's just our reality. So I think they were looking at, well, this would be our first step, and then, we may revisit, look at the data again for next year. And then if we have people registering or whatever, system we come up with, If we've raised rates, then we'll know, did that affect people? Did it not affect them coming? Did more people morph into a membership? We don't know.
It will be a much harder sell to purchase a new pool if that pool is, the discussions we've had come up in that meeting.
I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up tomorrow on the Parks and Rec and just say, hey, here's what I'm thinking now that I'm on that committee. It's a first reading tonight, so we're not going to vote on it. But as is, I'm going to motion on the rates to increase the non-resident daily rate. Just so you guys can be mentally prepared in 2 weeks. I'm going to vote for it.
So if you look at the numbers real quick, we're increasing roughly about 70% for the non-residents. If you think we're going to lose people coming in, you'd have to lose over 40% of the people coming in that are non-resident to lose money and start tanking. I don't think we're going to lose 40% of the non-residents not coming in. I think they're still going to come in. You start doubling that, and let's say if you go from instead of 10, you go $12 for the non-resident. I think you're going to see that being dropping off quite a bit. I think. I don't know. As Mr. Chen said, the first year is going to go down. I don't think it's going to go down 40% though. Again, I'm an engineer. I like the numbers. I like seeing the things. And so we're increasing by 70% roughly. It's going to be, I just can't see us losing that many residents with the numbers we got right now, and we're still going to gain revenue. Again, you've never had daily passes as a non-resident, so that revenue is going to increase anyway. If you're saying right now that we had, over 70% of the people coming in on daily passes were non-resident, that revenue is just going to go up. But if not as much coming in, we're going to break even at that.
I think on a real world level, I think that, we actually know mostly the communities that people came in from. I can certainly share that with council. It's interesting. So we did it for, I think it was 6 weeks. So pretty much the main part of summer. And we found out that the largest percentage of users were coming from Marysville. So almost 18%, and there was a list of like 60 different communities, but we had people camping coming, so it said Arizona or whatever, we discounted that, but 18% of the top users were coming from Marysville. The next percent was almost 14.5% were Plain City, non-village. So that would be the surrounding areas. So that's your second highest. Marysville surprised me, honestly. And then London, almost 10%, Columbus, 9%, Dublin, 4.5%, Hilliard, 4.5%, West Jeff, 4%, Galloway, 3%, well, almost 4%, Powell, 3.5%, Ostrander, which makes sense, 2.8%, and it goes down. But what I did was I put people that have pools and people that don't have pools. And I totally understand someone in Ostrander, they don't have a pool, I get it. You want to go somewhere, right? And they're in proximity. So I will say though, Marysville surprised me because they do have a rather large pool.
Their pass rate.
Let's see if I brought it with me.
Or what's
It's cheaper than ours. Marysville's swim lessons and their daily pass rates, I believe, are cheaper than ours. Hang on, let's see if I got that there. Okay. Actually, Marysville is the same as ours right now. It's the exact same rate.
The $10 or it was
685.
685. Okay.
They don't differentiate between resident and non-resident. Neither does London. Theirs is 5, 5, and 3. Columbus is $1. Dublin is 10, 11, and 10. But again, that's. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. On memberships, they don't allow you to come in, but Dublin does have a non-resident rate. So their resident rate is 10, 11, 10. Their non-resident rate is 12, 13, 12. Hilliard's is 10, 10, 5. So when I kind of looked at all those rates in totality, I'm like, well, 10, 10 seems pretty fair.
Tracking in the dailies, did you know how many repeats on that time frame?
People were signing in. Literally, my pool manager, bless his heart, went through sheets and sheets of sign-ins and just tallied. Yeah, we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. It was very time intensive to track. Yeah. But
Ferguson, what are your thoughts on the rates?
I mean, I can just agree with just about anything that we do going forward. I mean, I do like the idea of raising it to the non-residents for the revenue. But I do thank you though for that data because we've not had that before. So it's really something to just sit and think about. It's very helpful. So thank you.
I mean, I think it's a step, I like the direction it's going, so I think it's more of just finding that sweet spot or that amount.
If-
You know,
if-
if it's 90 degrees for 8 weeks, it's busy. It's
Sure.
70 degrees all summer, it'd probably be as crowded, so.
Yeah. I can certainly send out some of the spreadsheets with the data if council wants to look at it. We'll probably go over this, I guess we're gonna go over this again at the park committee.
Are we looking at digital, like some solutions to scan driver license to do better tracking and automatic determining of stuff, or?
So I want to throw this out, and I've kind of talked about this with village administration and with coworkers, and I'm like, you know, what about doing a resident card? So, and it wouldn't just be for the aquatic center, it could be for everything. So in the future, maybe, and it would be tied to your trash bill, so your account number would just tie to you, so there'd be your address, your name, and everything. And let's say you came to a Parks and Rec program, or you're registering online, and, you know, residents pay this rate, non-residents pay this rate, and you just have to put in your resident number. Tossing that around, trying to figure out the best way to do that. Do we drive them to come in and register for it? Do we mail them out to people? Trying to figure that out. It's logistically the best way to do it. We're still kind of on the fence with it, but I think moving for the future, that makes a lot of sense to me. Kind of like when you present your membership tag at the pool, you know, we scan you in, same thing with a resident card.
Yeah.
Logistically, we got to figure out how that would work when people move and there's renters and all that fun stuff, so. But that's one thought I had.
The only thing, I guess, with the stuff is the pool parties is, I mean, I almost feel like just offering it for residents. I mean, I know it's like, my wife has it set on like the calendar of like first day, like, you know, we're right there, you know, I have to be there, and it's, you get mad when you miss that date, because you're only talking, what, 3 days?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday, Sunday.
So just to let you know, when we did the priority registration for pool parties, I think there were like 4 slots left for non-residents. I mean, residents quickly took them all, most of them. So there literally were like 4 slots that kind of nobody wanted, which is the very beginning of the season when you don't know where it's going to be cold. They pretty much, you know, gobbled up all the dates, just FYI, by doing that priority registration, so.
Is it one date per person that calls in, or can some?
I've never had people do multiple parties.
Okay.
Plus, if they're gonna have to pay now, who cares? As long as they're not reselling them. Yeah.
You want every Saturday?
Yeah, I was gonna get every
Just
Saturday.
side
Just every morning.
all summer long.
Sell them on the side.
I do appreciate, Mr. Terry, your comments on to be prepared, like, you know, I think that's with raising the rates, I think that shows our residents that we are committed to solving the current issues of the overcrowded capacity at the pool, that we want to give them a better experience for living in the village, and we need to be prepared, and we know.
I mean, when it's really hot out, my neighbors won't even go because they're like, it's gonna be so crowded and everything. And now, will that stop with it? No, but if we did have a downturn in revenue because there's less non-residents there, I think people enjoy the space. I think people enjoy being able to like see their kid and everything. If it's a little less crowded and we have a little less revenue, I'm not saying that I'm trying to cut our revenue out, but if we lose 10 grand, but every experience is better for the residents and they actually can go, I'm not too concerned about it.
I think that's the mindset to have going forward.
Well, it's, you know, right now we have all different houses getting built. It's not like we have a fixed number of residents where we know it's like however many houses were put on last year, next year, it's like we're going to have an increasing resident rate for the foreseeable future. So it's not like.
The reason Dublin went the route they went, I'm sure, is because this started, you know, at one point, and then something like Shrek happens, and you're like, oh, wow, you're not going to build a pool over there. I have to stop you from coming here. Like, I have no other option. So I can't afford to ask my residents to build you a pool. It's just a ridiculous.
I think the same thing happened in Dublin when I first came here, there was actually a 3-tier system. There was resident, school district resident,
Sure.
and I actually got rid of it. Because if the philosophy is our residents pay taxes to support this, and we love, you know, everybody who lives in the outlying area, but I mean, they're not paying to support the pool.
I think
Residents are not getting it for free, so they're paying twice essentially.
And I think that's the next step then could be that, you know, if we have to limit, then you just have to go with a Plain City resident to the pool. Because I think that was the thing that was stated, well, what if my child doesn't see their friends at the pool? Well, then they just have to go with you as a Plain City resident in the future. Like that could be
Yeah,
another
with a
step.
+1.
Yeah.
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 I think that might be the next step we go. And then, you know, as we grow bigger and bigger, I like the idea of the card. I mean, because your areas are gonna grow even more in Parks and Rec. You're gonna have more events, you're gonna have more opportunities, you know, different, you know.
Well, and that's sort of where I was headed, thinking about the future and whether it's 4th of July perhaps, or Fall Fest. Maybe residents get it for free, so they just have to show their card, or maybe they register, whatever it is, and then non-residents don't have that card, so it's kind of an easy way to differentiate. I don't know how we're gonna enact it yet, but it's a thought.
And Darby Station School opens this summer.
Yeah, it should open this summer.
That's only for the neighborhood though, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people, I know, I was out at the pool a couple times, I talked to a couple people that did live in Darby Station, they had joined our pool because theirs wasn't open. I don't know how much that's gonna alleviate, I don't know.
And why is it only people that live in Dark Station? Oh, because they're the ones that pay for it.
For rain, I'm sure, rain guests.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Granger. Thank you. Okay, moving into the next portion of our meeting, we have a couple motions. And per wrapping up items from last year, I would entertain a motion to accept the removal of Jamie Davis from Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Herman,
Yes.
Mr. Terry.
Yep.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Sens,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
That motion is approved. And the next motion is to appoint Mr. Nick McCullough to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So,
Second.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Sens,
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson. Yes. Mr. Terry,
yes.
Mr. Herman,
Yes.
Mr. Daly.
Yes.
The motion was approved. We do not have any unfinished business, so moving into new business. First reading ordinance 1-2025, authorizing the establishment of a new capital acquisition fund. First reading ordinance 2-2025, amending the codified ordinances, chapter 375, snowmobiles, off-highway motorcycles, and all-purpose vehicles and underspeed vehicles of part 3 of the traffic code. First reading resolution 1-2025, authorizing the Village of Plain City's participation in the ODOT US 42 West Avenue Perry Pike intersection pedestrian improvement project in accordance with ORC section 5521.01. First reading ordinance 2-2025, approval and granting consent to the Director of the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, the authority to apply, maintain, and repair standard longitudinal pavement markings and erect regulatory and warning signs on state highways inside village corporate limits, and giving consent of the village for ODOT to remove snow and ice and use snow and ice control material on state highways inside the village corporate limits, and giving consent of the village for ODOT to perform maintenance and or repair on state highways inside the village corporation.
Could you repeat that again?
Exactly.
Sorry, what was that?
The longitudinal,
One
yes.
more time.
First reading resolution 3-2025, authorizing the execution of a contract with GovDeals, Inc. for internet-based auction services for 2025. First reading resolution 4-2025, amending the fees and rates for the Plain City Aquatic Center. First reading resolution 5-2025, authorizing the trade-in of village property. First reading resolution 6-2025, authorizing the village administrator to purchase equipment through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program and waiving the second reading.
Motion to waive second reading of resolution 06-2025.
Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mr. Herman,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes. Motion to approve resolution 06-2025.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Terry?
Yes.
Ms. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Herron?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson?
The resolution 6-2025, the second reading was waived and it was approved. And that concludes our meeting for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned.